All right, so we've all started up Visual Studio, so we're all right here. We're going to do a file, open. Okay. Now, what's new this semester is it's website. Every time we do this virtually, it's going to be website. So that's what you want to open. All right, that'll bring you to here. Yours, of course, won't look like mine because you've got different files on your system than I do. But you want to make sure you're at the desktop like I am right here. All right. Once you're at the desktop, you should have the program Chapter 1 Future Value. Now that said, please watch, because otherwise I know you. You're going to do what I do, and that is just start clicking your way through. Don't do that. Now, you don't do what I'm about to do. You don't want to open it like that. All right? You want to be at the folder level right there. Click on the folder and click open. That will always open an existing project for you correctly. All right? And like I said, there's the solution file that's in there too, and you might be used to. I can just double click that. Sometimes that doesn't work. It'll just hang. I don't know why. It's a Microsoft product. All right? So what I'm telling you is if I went and sent them an email, they would just never get back to me because I don't matter. All right? Now, hopefully what you see after you've done that, if you look over on the side here, is you've got a bunch of stuff right there. And there's stuff in here, etc. All right. What we're most concerned with, and what you can actually open up if you want to, is if you look right here, whoops, now I open up, is the folder that just says CH01 Future Value right there. All right, that one. That's what we want it to look like. All right. Now I'm going to mention some stuff to you today. You're not going to remember it. All right. So I'm taping this, but even so, the first few times that we do this, we're going to do it nice and slow. Okay? Because I want you to understand what it is we're doing. All right? Now, if you look up on the screen for a second here, I'm going to close this. I want to show you something because they've actually set this thing up different than I thought they did. This is a Muroc thing. So I'm going to close this solution. Okay? I know I don't want to save it. So I'm going to do just what I did before. I'm going to do a file, open, website, and now I am going to open it up because I didn't realize they have a 01 future value in a 01 future value folder. All right? And you say, why the hell would they do that? I don't know. But that's the actual file that we want to open there. But the one that you did is fine. It won't hurt anything. But if you do it that way, that's what's in there. Now, I want to explain to you what these files are in here. Again, you won't remember this, and it's okay. But I just want to go over the stuff that's in here. This is your bin file. All right, why is that important? Does anybody know what DLL stands for? Nope, Dynamic Link Library. They're system files that the program needs in order to be able to do its thing, for lack of better words. All right, so they're in there, plus what ends up going in there into the bin directory, whoops, will be an executable copy of your program. Okay? Again, you don't have to worry about remembering it. This is the image that we're going to use in here. Now, when you bring it up here, this is going to look really ugly. And if you turn to page 21 of your book, what you notice, the image is real small, and it will be. It will scale in our project. Okay, so don't worry about it, but that is it. The reason I'm showing you all this stuff, and let me close this, I don't even need this open, is let's suppose I didn't have an images folder. You all with me? I don't have an images folder and I want one. Then we're always going to be using this over here. Not the file that says solution, but the one underneath it. We're going to right mouse click. You don't have to do this, but I'm showing it to you. And I would click add, and I would click new folder. And when the new folder came up, I would call it images. Do you have to put images in an images folder? It just makes sense to do that, just the same way we did it in HTML. All right. Now you'll also notice if we do this, there's add ASP.NET folder. And you see the ones that are way over there to the left? The first one that you see there is app code. All right. That's where we're going to end up. We're going to write more classes this semester than we did last semester. Classes go in there. Classes are files, they're program files that don't have a GUI. All right, so all of your classes will go in the app code folder. The global, local, and web reference, the global and local resources and the web references, just forget about it, because we're not going to have to do anything with them. All right. The app data, that's where your databases go. So when we get to that point, they must go in there for the system to be able to recognize them. All right. The app browsers, don't worry about the theme. We don't hit until like chapter 9 or 10. All right. But I'm just trying to show you the stuff that's in here just so you see it.
What's the theme for standardizing it?
Okay, the question is, what is the theme for? For lack of better words, themes are kind of like using CSS. You can make a theme. What they do in here.
Does that apply for like measurements and stuff?
No, not so much. But in this book, they do this Halloween Superstore. All right, and virtually every copy of it in every chapter, you get an orange background, so it looks pumpkin-y, etc. When they have the themes chapter, they have that orange one. Then they create another theme that's a white background that looks like it has spider webs, and you can switch from one theme to the other. That's what themes are typically used for. All right. So OBJ is your object file. So in other words, you should never have to look in the bin or do anything in it. You should never have to look in the OBJ and do anything in it. Neither one of those. These are Visual Studio project files under properties. Again, don't touch those. You should never have to touch anything that's in these. All right? When you go and you create a brand new folder, if you do, I'm sorry, say that again. When you go in and you create a new file in here, okay? And I'm going to show you that in just a minute. By default, that's a terrible wordage because by default it's called default. So in other words, if I come in here and I click on the project and I go in and I say add, oops, sorry. So I right mouse click on the name and I click add existing item, and I go over here. I don't know why it's doing it like that. Try it again. So I'm going to right mouse click on the project, and I'm going to choose add. The easiest way is, see down there where it says web form on the very bottom? All right. Anytime you want to add a new form, or I can do it here too. I don't want it with master, so I'd want that one, web form. Notice why is it called default 2? Because we already have a default. Why didn't they change the name? Why didn't Muroc change the name to Future Value? I don't know. I'm not Muroc. But what I'm saying is I will expect that when you are creating projects, you won't use the name default.aspx. So if you've got 3 forms, I don't want default 2, and default 3. I don't think that's asking too much. All right? So let me cancel out of there. So the ASPX file, that file right there is literally, I can bring that up. That's real nice. I'm wondering, how I showed you? Let me close this again. How I told you to bring it up? You may have to bring it up that way. Looks like it did, yeah. I don't know why it's not showing anything in here, and it's not, but we'll get to that in a second. So your form files are here. There's actually 2 files that you're going to end up creating. I think I said this the other day. That is going to be your file where you paint your GUI, for lack of better words. All right? And that, right there, that is going to be the C# that goes with it. All right? When you go in and you create a brand new form, it'll ask you, when you create the new form, it'll say, do you want to put your code in a separate file? Always make sure that thing is checked. Yes, we do. Always. All right? This is a designer file, so you won't touch this. None of the rest of the stuff that's in here we're going to have to touch for a while. Eventually, we'll look at the web.config file, but not for a while, so I'm not going to even get into that with you. All right. Trying to figure out why there's nothing in here. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend the first part of the period, I'm going to go over the stuff that's in your book. So if you've got your book with you, great. If you don't, May even have to lean on you here, Brady, because I don't know where I put that PDF, but it's here someplace. It's not like I've got a mess on my desktop or anything like that.
I've got it on here too.
My daughter saw that. She yelled at me for covering up her kid's face. So. Lovely. Here, I think I've got it. So this is the file that Brady was good enough to find for us. So that's your book. So talk to him if you want a copy of it. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got it on a flash drive.
All right.
if you want
He's
it.
got it on a flash drive. So if you want it, let him know during the break or whatever. This will make our lives a lot nicer. You may or may not be aware of this. You may or may not care. But Muroc doesn't provide PDFs, period. Not even to instructors. You've got to use this thing called Lock Lizard. And it's a pain in the butt. And I don't like the way it works at all. And I tried to ask them, why do you do it like that? And basically the answer was, because we do it like that, which meant it's none of your business. That's the way we do it. Okay, that's fine. So we're at the beginning. Chapter 1 is just going to introduce you to ASP.NET. So again, the idea is not so much that you'll understand everything that's in here. So they talk about web apps. They'll show you this Halloween Superstore. They'll talk about ASP.NET development and how an ASP.NET app works. The key thing for you to remember is this, and I'm going to say this, and I'm not even sure how well you do or do not understand this. Everything we've done so far with C#, it hasn't been involved a client, it hasn't involved a server. It's as though we've been writing applications for a user so they can run the application, not on a web. There's no web interface. This is a web product. So we will be writing client-side code. We will also be writing server-side code. The server-side stuff that we're doing is the ASP. The client-side stuff, we're going to be writing some good old-fashioned HTML. All right, some good old-fashioned Bootstrap, etc. All right. So there's their definition of a web application. As we get into it, yes, we will have a series or a set of web pages. So what they show on the next page here, if you look up on the screen, this is what they end up building, not what we'll do in this chapter, but this is what they end up building throughout the book. All right, it's called the Halloween Superstore. Kind of a neat app in that if you look down here, first of all the information that it's grabbing from a database. Okay? And the product, it's going in the products database and it's grabbing all the product names. And there's a lot of them here, but it's in a drop-down list. So for instance, if I choose flying bats, it gives me the heading, flying bats, what's called a short description, a long description, a price, and an image. Okay? This is something that we add, this stuff. Because who knows if the person wants to order any or how many they want to order. So what I'm telling you is the stuff that's down here, the quantity, the add to cart, the go to cart, these are both buttons. This stuff that's here on the bottom that I'm drawing the bad circle around, those are not in the database. The other information, this, and this, they're all in the database. Does that make sense to you? So as I come down here, and believe me, there's weird stuff in here, like there's a Freddy Krueger mask. There's a Jason from Friday the 13th mask, etc. So if I change this, if I click down here and I choose Freddy Krueger mask, this would change, this would change, this would change, and that would change. The quantity and the buttons down below would still look the same. Does all that make sense? All right. And it is what's called database driven. So this is the order page. And then once you order and you put something into a cart, you click go to cart, there's your cart page. It's very simplistic. All right. And some of the functionality won't be put in here until later chapters, just so you know that. All right. You've got your choice. Now, if you click remove item and there's nothing highlighted, I believe nothing happens. So if you wanted to put some code in there to have a message come up or something that said you must choose an item, if you're going to click remove item, you'd have to add that. All right. If you click empty cart, it doesn't have to be highlighted. It removes everything from your cart. All right. But remove item just removes a single item. Clear empty cart does everything. All right. The checkout is not implemented. All right. It may be it is somewhat later, but it's never totally implemented. They don't have this put in here with PayPal or anything like that. They haven't done that. All right. Look at how thick the book is anyway, and they didn't do that. All right. So, turning up to page 6 and 7, they show the components of a web application. Let's look at the picture that's on page 7. All right. This has actually been upgraded from their last book. What they added from their last book is they didn't have tablet on there, and they didn't have smartphone on there. All they had was computer, computer, computer. All right. But the idea is, if we get all this stuff to work, and if we're able to coordinate that and get it to work with the Rankin server, you can show this to somebody from your phone. All right. And I think that's kind of slick. All right. The components of a URL, my hope is, you know that stuff already. All right. So I'm not going to be doing a lot of review here. All right. What's the difference between a static web page and a dynamic web page? And you don't have to all shout it out at once.
Static page doesn't change.
There you go. Static page doesn't change. So if you've got a page, when you bring it up, and that page, the page that you bring up is a .html page, it's a static page. The ones that we will end up creating in here will be dynamic. So the page that we bring up will be like default.aspx. That's a dynamic page. So a static page has no interaction with a server. That's the big thing. Now they show this little picture here on page 9, right there. Notice there is communication between a client and a server. All right, there's a request and a response, but it's responding with an HTML page. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. Sometimes you'll hear the word in here. People will say there's no dynamicity. You won't have anything where it'll show you special stuff. It won't show you how many people have come to your website. All right. There could even possibly be some JavaScript in it, but typically there's none. All right. On the other hand, this is what we're concerned with now. All right. Those are dynamic web pages. So notice the big difference when we look at the picture on page 11. There's almost always going to be multiple servers involved. Okay? Now, when you go to Rankin, if you go out to rankin.edu, I don't know how Rankin is set up, but my guess is somewhere in St. Louis, there is either a building or a big room where they've got a bunch of server computers. And those servers highlight all of your requests. Now, even when you think about it, even at the beginning of the semester, I wouldn't think that those servers are getting hit more than with a few hundred requests at a time. Would you agree with that? Rankin's not that big of a school. On the other hand, Amazon's not like that. Amazon right now, if I went and put something in a cart, there are probably a good 100,000 other people doing it, putting something in a cart too. And I'm not exaggerating. There could be more than that. All right. So the reason I'm telling you that is with Amazon, they have buildings that are called server farms that just house all their servers. And they're not going to be in the same location. Why aren't they going to all be in the same location? There's two reasons. Why?
Because of the latency.
Well, yeah, you're right. That is one of them. It's because if somebody is ordering something from China and all their servers are in Kentucky, it's going to take longer. All right. So yeah, you're right. That is the big one. The other one is, well, what if what if what's happening in Houston happened?
Yeah.
They wouldn't want to lose everything. And if something goes down, ideally they can shift the whatever's going on to servers in another place. All right, that's the way it typically works. All right, but again, the other thing too is there's more than one server involved. You've got a main server, kind of like a host server, and that server is going to figure out who or what else has to be called. The other thing that's here that we didn't see last semester, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, we didn't do a lick with databases in C#. We talked about databases, but not really in the guise of C#. All right? The book that we had didn't have anything in it about databases. Well, the heart of this book, which is like chapters 11 through 18, is all on databases. We are going to go through chapters 1 through 11 or whatever it is as fast as we can. And I don't mean so fast that we're going to be done next week. No, that wouldn't be funny or right or anything. But we're going to go through them. My hope is by no later than the end of September that we're going to be into the database stuff. That gives us October, November, and December to be database centric. That's what we're really going to concentrate on. That'll get you a job. All right? There is no place that I know of, any company of any size, that doesn't have some kind of a database component. And you saw how screwed up the database component of a company could be yesterday. All right? So the dynamic web page definitely has an interaction with the server. If you look either up on your screen or on the bottom of page 11 in your book, these are terms that you're going to have to become familiar with. It says right here, the second last bullet on the bottom of page 11, the process that starts when a client requests a page and ends when the page is returned is called a round trip. That's going to become important as we get going. All right? It may not seem like a big thing one way or the other now, but it'll make more sense when we get into this a little bit. All right. Turning up to page 12. In Introduction to ASP.NET Development, they talk about the two different kinds of technologies. Okay? Remember this term, separation of concerns? Does anybody remember that from the first semester? Remember how we talked about, and I taught you almost from the get-go, that you had your HTML files in .html, you had your HTML and .html files, your CSS was in .css files, your JavaScript was in .js files. It's the same type of principle here. All right, you want to put things together that belong together. All right, when you create ASP applications, you can create them in two ways. You can create them as a web form application, which is very similar to what we did last semester. Or you can create them in what are called MVC, which is Model View Controller applications. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, the only chapter in this book that goes through MVC is chapter 25 of 25. So we're not going to do much work with that. All right? I've done some lectures. They're out there on the system. Now, when you look on page 13, in fact, let's bring this up here. It'll sound, you might say, well, you just misspoke with what you said. No, I didn't. All right, notice we've got ASP.NET Web Forms and ASP.NET MVC. Virtually everything we do in this class will be the first one, ASP.NET Web Forms. Virtually everything we do. If we have time at the end of the semester, I'd love to go into talking a little bit about MVC with you. All right? And the next book that we get, so the people who are taking this class a year from now, the chances are real good it won't be Mirok's book. Evan is really pushing me to do more MVC stuff because a lot of the employers that he's talking to want to know how much MVC you have. And MVC is a weird term because it means different things to different people. I'll give it to you real quick. All right? You've got a model, you've got a view, you've got a controller. The view is the easiest part to explain because the view is the HTML. It's what you present to the user. The model is typically a database, but it's not directly the database. You typically write classes that mimic the database, and they do all the database work for you. The controller is like the traffic cop. The model cannot talk directly to the view, The view cannot talk directly to the model. They both have to go through the controller. All right? So the controller, in many ways, it's kind of like, if you remember when we talked about the main function, one of the first things I said is it's kind of like a conductor for a symphony, that they don't do the work, but they basically say when to come in, etc. That's kind of what the controller does here. So in a nutshell, that's what a model view controller is. It allows you to write code where if you break your code up like that, if you put all your model stuff in the models folder, all your view stuff in the views folder, and all your controller stuff in the controllers folder, it's real easy to swap things in and out. You can still cheat. You can write model code and put it in your view. You can write view code and put it in your model. That makes it very hard, if not impossible, to swap things in and out. That's why it's important. All right, and that may have meant nothing to you, and it's okay. But you'll hear about it later on in the semester. All right. What we did last semester is we wrote web applications, just so you know. Or I should say we wrote applications. All right. Now we're going to be concerned with websites. Okay? And again, it's not that important that you listen and remember all this stuff. I'm just trying to give you some terminology. So there's the way he explains model view controller. Is it better than the way I'm doing it? Probably. 3 environments for developing ASP.NET applications. Okay. Virtually 100% of what we do in this class, this is page 15, is the top one, standalone. What that means is when you go and you run your application, they're literally in the ASP.NET, in Visual Studio, there is a built-in server. Just so you know, there is a built-in server in Visual Studio.NET. It will run your project. It will actually bring it up in the equivalent of a browser window. That's the good news. The bad news is if you're in a standalone environment, how do other people see your work if you're in a standalone environment? It's a trick question because they can't, because it's standalone. So if you create a project, or let's say we create that project for that St. Charles County EDC, we'd have to go to probably an intranet or an internet environment where we'd have to load it on a server so people could bang on it. All right? But with our stuff that we'll be working on, at least for a while, everything will be standalone, just so you know that. All right? All right. Next, they talk about the components of the .NET framework. Again, this is a very dry chapter. I'm probably not doing it the justice it should have anyway. But if you look, make that a little smaller. There we go. This is the same picture that's on page 17 in your book, the .NET framework. Okay? I don't know if I ever gave you this example in the past or not. I have no idea. I'm not a hardware person. I've said that before, but I'm drawing 3 circles. And if I looked at this inside circle, that's the computer. If I looked at that outside circle, and that's the user. Anybody know what the middle circle is? Anybody want to guess what the middle circle is? That's the way I define an operating system. It allows the communication between the user and the machine to take place. In fact, sometimes an operating system is referred to as a user-machine interface. It allows the communication to take place. So why am I telling you that? Well, because that's at the bottom level. One new thing, this probably won't affect any of you, but it's cool, in my opinion. Just in the last year, they, ASP.NET and Microsoft, they haven't gone open source, but you can now run all this stuff on Apple machines. You can never do that before. All right? And there were people who literally said that will never happen. Bill Gates will never allow that to happen. It does. Because they've decided that there's enough companies out there that are using Apple, Mac, whatever you want to call it, all right, that they wanted to support them. So they do. All right? They also support Linux. But the key thing is when you look down here, everything else is under other operating systems. Because this product still works the best, the most seamless with Windows. And wouldn't you expect that? A Windows, Microsoft software to work best with Windows? I would expect that. All right, but that's the lowest level. You don't ever have to do any communication with that. All right, then we work our way up. This is the .NET framework. All right, stuff that you should understand, or at least that you've heard this. Okay, Windows form classes, that's stuff that you use all the time, but it's freebies. It's just stuff that's provided for you. Okay? Managed applications, same thing. Other classes, same thing. When you compile a program in Visual Studio, it gets compiled into what's called MISL. MS is always Microsoft, always. All right? And what's the other thing? Intermediate language. So when you compile a program and it goes into MISL, that's what it is. So that's what that thing is. Okay? What we'll learn next semester is in Java is we're going to be something that's built into all computers basically is called the JVM, the Java Virtual Machine. And it's kind of like Java's operating system. It allows everything to happen. All right? The equivalent of that in here is really, it's called the Common Language Runtime, but it's got the Common Type System in it. So that's what that's for. And these are built-in classes. So again, you typically don't have any direct interaction other than, remember how we say, we do stuff like using at the top where we bring in those files? That's the stuff we're bringing in here. All right? What we're concerned with is up here. All right? This is where we're going to be doing this. Well, the one that we care about is this one. So that's the framework in a nutshell. If you want more, you can read, but he doesn't really give a lot either, but you can take a look at what's in there. Okay. All right, turning up to page 19. Like I said, I'm doing this because I think it's important that you're at least exposed to this stuff, but if you say, I'll never remember this, it's okay. At least you've heard it. All right. So here, they say why state is difficult to track in a web application. We may have gone over this before, we may not have. I don't remember, but it's regardless, even if we have, it pays to go over it again. Okay. You may not even know what they mean by this, but state, as you look down here, says state refers to the current status of the properties, variables, and other data. Meantime, what the hell does that mean? That means that if I go into Amazon.com and I start putting some stuff into a shopping cart, all right? That means that my state is all that different stuff that's in the shopping cart, okay, for lack of better words. But it says here, why state is difficult to track in a web application. So I'm here. I go out to Amazon.com right here, and I put this book into my shopping cart, okay? All right, I decide I'm not going to buy it now, but I'm going to leave it in there. I might buy it tomorrow. I come back the next day. My computer's still on. It's on all the time. So I come back the next day, and I come back and I make another request. I do it all over again. So I go and I put another book in here. You with me? So now I've got 2 books in there. As far as, remember what this means? What is that? What's HTTP? What does that stand for? Geez, not all at once. Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It's the way information gets sent and returned. The point is, once you do this and I make another request, by default, the system is so stupid, it doesn't realize it's coming from the same machine. And it doesn't care. It's just that it's another request. All right, and now think about that. Okay, so let's say I work at McDonald's, and okay, Ethan comes in, and I said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll have a cheeseburger." Okay, and he's still thinking. Okay, in the meantime, Evan comes in, and he orders something else. Well, I want to make sure that if Ethan comes back and now says, "Oh, and I want a Coke too," that he gets a cheeseburger and a Coke, that he doesn't get Evan's order. Correct? We want to do that. So state has to make sure that that is maintained. Okay. And it's done in different ways here. The real big reason that you need to know this and why it's important is for things like shopping carts. I want to make sure whatever I order, I get it, that I don't get something I didn't order, that no one else gets, and I don't get charged for something somebody else ordered, that kind of thing. So the system has to keep track of all that stuff. And there's different ways that it can do it. And on the bottom of the page here, I'm not going to read this to you. They explain some of it. You're going to see something, if not today, you're going to see it tomorrow, that's called view state. And you're going to look at it, and it's like, what the heck is this? It's like a thing that's about 40 characters long. It's something that gets generated for you when you start creating an application. So much of the stuff you really don't have to worry about if you just set it up in a standard way, because the system will handle a lot of it for you. That's what I'm telling you. So they mention on the very bottom of the page, it says ASP.NET gives you 5 different ways that you can handle state. Well, once we get up to Chapter 8, Chapter 8 is entitled How to Work with State, Cookies, and URL Encoding. So we're going to visit that again, but at least you've heard it. All right? All right. Now, page 20. Now they start talking about how this works. Okay? All right, we're going to try something different because I don't like the way that mine is looking at all. So we're going to build this application. It's 1:22. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll go till 1:30 and then we'll take a break. All right? But everybody right now, what I'd like all of you to do is you've all got Visual Studio up and running. Let's close this thing that I had you open. So we're going to do File, and we're going to say Close Solution. If you ever get asked that question, I think I said this to you even last semester, always say no. By default, it's going to save that, but it's not going to save it to where your project is. It's going to save it out to your hard drive. And the reason that's important is if you say yes here and it saves it to the wrong place, when you turn me in your work, I don't have access to your hard drive, so I won't be able to grade your homework. So always say no if it says, do you want to save this, the .sln file. Always say no. All right? So we're all here, correct? Okay. So we're all going to do this. First time, File, New, Website. Everybody, File, New, Website. You don't have to repeat that, but do that, please. This will work out real well time-wise because it'll allow me to show you a couple things. And I don't know if yours is going to take as long as, well, that wasn't too bad. A couple of things that are up here. Please look on the screen, okay? First of all, if it's not, make sure yours is highlighted on Visual C#. If it wasn't set, it's not impossible that it would be set to Visual Basic or other or online or whatever. Second, don't worry about monkeying with this. This should be okay by default. But if I do click that down, notice there's newer ones than the one I'm using. It's okay. All right, it'll still work just fine, just with the default stuff. All right? Now, I'm not going to lie to you. 5 things here. Never done anything with it, never done anything with it, never done anything with it. Worked with these 2. Okay? So we're not going to worry about these. And actually what I just told you is sort of a misnomer. I did this online class where I had to use Razor. So I have used Razor before. All right? But I've never done anything with these. This is Windows Communication Foundation. This is another way of doing database stuff, but it's much more complex. So if I were to choose, I don't want you to do this. If we chose empty project, all kidding aside, you'd get an empty project. There actually is a file in it that's called web.config, which is the configuration for your website, which is basically empty. All right? The good news is if you do it that way, you start from scratch. You can put anything in you want to put in. All right? That's an advantage of doing it that way. We're going to choose the ASP.NET Web Forms site. Now, once you choose that, don't hit enter, don't click OK, don't do anything. But make sure you've got ASP.NET Web Forms site. All right? Now, notice where mine is being saved. Because the last time I was working on this, I was on the desktop, but I created a folder called Blue Line Websites. Yours isn't going to say that unless you have that folder. But we want to make sure, and click Browse if you have to, all right, that you're going to your website. That's where you want to save this. Okay? So I'm going to click on Browse. I'm going to make sure that I go to my desktop, which is right there. That's where I want to be. Okay? And I don't want any of this stuff, so I'm going to get rid of it. But I do have to give it a name. So I'm going to call this, where yours says website 1, I'm just going to call it future value. And I'm not going to have any blank spaces in it. A big F, a big V, and a little UTURE, and a little ALUE. Everybody get that? You're not turning this in. This is meant to be practice. All right? You are not turning this in. But yours should look like that. And if you have questions, stop me. All right? Yeah. What I did was I clicked the Browse button, made sure I was at my desktop. So over here, mine said see users rank in desktop. That's what mine looked like. Yours is going to be your desktop, whatever it is. Then by default, it calls it website 1. Unless you have a website 1, then guess what it calls it? How about website 2? You know, it'll just keep doing that. But I want you to call yours future value. Okay? Everybody get that? All right. So once you've got that, go ahead and click the open. And mine says, the folder future value does not exist. Would you like to create this folder? Yes. So why is it asking me to do it again? Why? There. Now it's going to build the project. This is going to take a minute, but you're going to notice, see how this is empty? Watch in a minute what happens. I didn't mean really a minute, but I guess it might take that long. There. So it created a whole boatload of stuff in here. For right now, there's very little stuff in here we have to worry about, just so you know that. But I want to show you something. If you'd all look on the screen here, since this is a basically a built-in type of website that we just created, I'm going to run it the same way we ran it in the past, so I'm going to click the button. You can do the same if you want to. You don't have to. But I want to show you this. You get 3. You get an about, a contact, and a default. These are built for you, just so you know. So right now, this is what our project looks like, right here. As soon as it comes up, there we go. Remember that? Jumbotron? Okay. So there's our about. I'm sorry, there's our home. There's our about, which has virtually nothing in it. Okay. And there's our contact, which has, again, virtually nothing in it. Okay. You get that stuff by default. I went and built that St. Louis Blues website, the one I showed you, but I built it in ASP.NET, and what I did was I kept the home page, made some changes to it, but in the About page, that's where I put a lot of my stuff. Okay? All right. Let's do one more thing, then we're breaking, and that is, just so you know, if you open yours, I don't know if you did or not, but if you open yours and if you look up here, see where this says localhost? Everybody see this? That means it's your machine. Localhost is also known as 127.0.0.1. That's the IP address of your machine. So if you ever had to loop back to your own machine, it is localhost or it's this. So what I'm telling you is it's running a copy of a server on your machine. It picks a random port to do that. There's no guarantee that if you run your program, if I run it again today, it's probably always going to use 53865. If I ran it tomorrow, it'll be a different number. So don't let that throw you. It's no big thing one way or the other. All right. So if you do have it open, close it probably the way you think. You can just click the X. Boom, I'm back to here. But when you look, because this is an important concept, please look at the screen. Okay, I closed it. The program is still running. It runs. You can always tell because you see the diagnostic stuff here. All right, we're going to click there. That stopped the run. All right. Now, it's a good news, bad news, and the bad news is I had you build this, and it's got way more stuff in it than we need. Okay? So what we're going to do is this. We're going to do a file, Close solution. All right, so Visual Studio is still up. Okay. If you want to keep that file, you can. If you want to go out and find it on your desktop, the folder, you can just get rid of the folder if you want to do that. It's up to you. All right. But let's take a break. It's 1:31. I'm going to give you a generous break. Let's come back at 1:45, and we're going to build this. All right. I'm not even going to worry about it. I'm just looking at the book for the pictures. I'm not going to go through the book. I'm going to tell you the most straightforward way of building this. All right. So we'll do that at 1:45.